Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Noel Clehane, and welcome to a closer look at Thailand. I'm the Global Head of Regulatory and Public Policy at BDO, and I'd like to welcome you to our series, A Closer Look, where we shed light on Asian countries through the eyes of leading local voices. Today, we're looking at Thailand, known to foreign tourists mostly for its stunning beaches, thousands of temples, and great food, and a country that I've just come back from, where a lot more is going on than we hear about here in Europe. In only 5 weeks' time, the Thais will hold a national election that could change the country's course fundamentally. In the coming hour, we'll talk with two leading voices from Thailand, and in the last 15 minutes or so, we also want to address your questions about Thailand. As always, with the A Closer Look series, you can submit those questions already and throughout the webinar through the Q&A function on Zoom. If you see a question that you really like, please upvote it so that it has a better chance of being answered in the last 15 minutes of the webinar. So let's start with a brief introduction to Thailand in only a handful of slides to get you familiar with the basics. So Thailand is made up of its highlands in the north, the fertile plateaus and valleys of the Mekong and Chao Phraya rivers in the northeast and central regions, and the Kra Isthmus, the thin southern part of Thailand that leads to the Malay Peninsula. Known as the Land of Smiles, apparently 13 different distinct types of smile, Thailand is about 12.5 times the size of Switzerland and shares about 5,000 kilometers of land borders with 4 neighboring countries, namely Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia, and Malaysia. It also has, incidentally, over 40,000 temples and has never been colonized. Next slide. So the country is home to some 70 million people, over 20% of whom live in the Bangkok metropolitan area. It's also home to about 10,000 Swiss expats, the largest number of Swiss in any Asian country. And I'm not surprised because the quality of life is firmly above average on a global scale and certainly by Asian standards. Currently, Thailand holds 67th place in the Human Development Index by the UN, measuring life expectancy, education level, and average income. And the kingdom continues to climb on that scale. Life expectancy is about 78.7 years, so very close to European averages. Thailand is an upper middle income country and a major export nation. 2/3 of GDP is made up of exports, mainly of electronics, food, and cars, and electronics and cars comprise about 30% of exports. As the 8th largest economy in Asia and the 2nd largest in Southeast Asia, its major trading partners are the US, China, Japan, and the EU. Trade with Switzerland is growing steadily, and the modernizing of Thailand's agricultural sector in the past 4 decades has more than halved the share of the workforce employed in that sector. Incidentally, Thailand is the 22nd largest economy in the world by purchasing power parity. Besides exports, tourism is, of course, a major part of Thailand's economy, currently making up around 20% of GDP, and that share is growing, expected to reach 30% by 2030. Pre-pandemic, the country received almost 40 million tourists a year, 200,000 of those from Switzerland. Meanwhile, 150,000 Thais visit Switzerland each year. Coming in 4th after the US, Spain, and France, Thailand pulls in approximately $60 billion in tourism dollars, certainly in 2019, pre-COVID, and by far the biggest cohort of tourists come from China, making up some 25% of the numbers. It's also one of the most photographed places on earth, according to Instagram. And finally, insofar as you can capture the history of any country in one slide, a brief overview. Over the past 90 years, Thailand has seen many changes in government, many of those through coups. In 1932, centuries of absolute monarchy ended with a bloodless revolution, and the country became a constitutional monarchy, which it still is. It changed its name to Siam in 1939, and in 1946, King Bhumibol became king. He reigned for 70 years, seeing 30 prime ministers, many of whom would come to power with a coup. Apparently, there were 10 coups and 17 different constitutions during his reign. In the 1950s, Thailand formally became a partner of the US, And that bond continues to grow stronger over the next decades as Thailand feared falling prey to communist takeovers like Vietnam in that part of the world. In 1967, it was one of the founders of ASEAN with the signing of the Bangkok Declaration. And in 1973, King Bhumibol fired the military prime minister after he failed to deal with student protests. First time since 1932 that the king had intervened directly in politics, which gave rise to a short, restless period of democracy thereafter, until 1976, when the military took back control, fearing the fall of Saigon might spread communist victories in Vietnam to Thailand. In 1997, the Asian financial crisis, which is sometimes seen as commencing in Thailand, brought to an end Thailand's 40 years of uninterrupted growth. And the government was forced to take unfavorable deals with the IMF, leading to protests and eventually the election in 2001 of the populist billionaire Thaksin Shinawatra. In 2019, the Regional Trade Agreement, or RCEP, was signed in Bangkok. And in 2006, Thaksin Shinawatra was deposed in a further coup. His sister won the election in 2011, but was then deposed in a coup in 2014. And the Prime Minister, General Prayut, who came to power in 2014, is still the Prime Minister. Let's see if history repeats itself, as Thaksin Shinawatra's daughter is a candidate in the upcoming election. So we'll talk about all this and what it might lead to with our two excellent guests today. We have Kun Yuenyong, co-founder and executive director of the Siam Intelligence Unit, a private think tank and research service on various social, environment, business, and economic issues in Thailand. He studied computer science and economics and graduated with a master's degree in public administration from Chulalongkorn University. Kan is responsible for the work on geopolitics and public policy in Trend Innovation Southeast, a monthly Southeast Asia Foresight journal, and his analysis on Thai politics is frequently quoted by local and global media outlets. He's also, interestingly, an alumnus of Asia Society's Asia 21 Young Leaders program. So thank you, Kan. Our second guest speaker today is Punchada Sirivunnabood. She's an associate professor in the Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities at Mahidol University in Bangkok. She was also a visiting fellow in the Thailand Studies program at the Institute of Southeast Asia Studies, Yusof Ishak Institute in Singapore. And she is, and this is perfect, so close to these Thai elections, an expert on political parties, elections, and politics in Thailand and Indonesia. Punchada is currently preparing a book on stability, change, institutionalization, and evolution in the Thai political party system. And she's a frequent contributor on Thai politics for the online magazine, The Diplomat. So welcome, Punchada and Kan, and I see you have your cameras on. So let's kick off today, if we might, with tourism. Thailand is best known for, certainly here in Europe and in Switzerland, and many other countries around the world, for being a brilliant holiday destination. As I mentioned earlier, tourism is a key driver of the economy, currently 20% of the GDP, and growing. And it expects 25 to 30 million foreign visitors this year, a fifth of whom will come from Europe. How do you become one of the top 5 countries in the world in tourism? And what can we learn from Thailand, even if we don't have the beaches, temples, and food? Kun Punchada, could I maybe pose that question to you to kick it off?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me here today, and good evening, good evening from Bangkok. The first question on the tourism, I think, Thailand is lucky enough that we have a lot of natural resources. We have mountains, we have beaches, we have a lot of forests that, a lot of tourists always come here just to visit, the beaches along the southern coast of Thailand, and also the mountain in the upper north. And also, the government and, saw the importance of the tourism in Thailand. Tourism is one of the top income of the Thai government. So then the government issues a lot of policy trying to help, the tourists to come into Thailand. For example, they offer, the visa on arrival, or some country, if we have a, MOU or contract with the Thai government, they can also enter Thailand for like 30 days or up to like 90 days. And they can spend time in here. And Thai people are so friendly. They always welcome tourists, which is different from other country. When we go to some other country, for example, some country in European country, some country, they don't really happy with the tourists. So, but in Thailand, it's different thing. Most of the people, not only in Bangkok but outside Bangkok, they are happy to welcome all the tourists. And also last week, I have a chance to visit the Chinese commerce in Thailand. And I met a lot of our, the investor from China who are, invest in Thailand. One of the things that they are raised the issue about the tourists in Thailand, that they want, the Thai government to help the tourists to get in here easily with the visa. And the government, trying to improve the policy concerning the visa. And also another thing is the security. I know that, when a lot of news in Thailand that some of tourists, they were attacked by the criminals, or some of them, got some kind of facing some security when they travel around. So the Thai government right now, they set up kind of a unit, because it's the tourism police trying to take care of the tourists itself. I don't think that many countries in Southeast Asia have this kind of unit about for the police to protect and, trying to prevent all the criminal things happen to the tourists.
Okay, so a land of smiles and welcomes, but also pragmatic measures to boost tourism and protect those who do come. How did COVID affect the tourism industry? Clearly, people couldn't travel into the country, and a big percentage of the country is in the informal economy, particularly tourism. So what was the effect of COVID on the Thai economy, particularly tourism?
Yes. Okay. First of all, I would like to thank to have me here in the program, and good evening from Bangkok to everyone. For the COVID-19, I think we have a lot of impact to the tourist economy. For my figure, if you have slide, you can share. I think I just sent to the program yesterday, I think. But anyway, in 2022, in January, the figure of the tourists just decreased into like 133,000 people, and then this year it just this one in 2 months ago, in January 2023, it just get back to 2 million travelers. But if you see the normal figures, from the pre-COVID period in the upper graph, you will see that we have almost like 20 million people travel to Thailand during January. So if you see the long term is a seasonal figure, peak in January, and then just declined, and then peak again in the winter here. So from the figure, I think we have recovered from the COVID, but not at its peak yet. So we will see that whether or not we will thrive into the normalization after the COVID or not, because at least I think, as far as I know, in WHO, I think they just start to announce the status of the COVID-19 from pandemic to endemic. So it's a sign to easing the problem of the COVID-19, and perhaps it will make the significant contribution to the tourist economy into Thailand more further than in the past.
Yeah, so the numbers are coming back, and I certainly saw that very personally 10 days ago when I was in Bangkok. But what I also saw were the sheer numbers of people, and in fact, the slide a few moments ago showed that the numbers are coming back, not where they were pre-pandemic, but growing fast. But there were concerns, weren't there, before the pandemic about the sustainability of mass tourism in Thailand, and the damage that it can do to the natural environment. I know it's not the only cause of pollution, but certainly the other thing that struck me in Bangkok recently was the levels of pollution. And I believe the week I was there up north, in Chiang Mai part of the country. It was the worst pollution in the world based on this PMI index. What part is tourism playing in that, and is it sustainable to keep growing mass tourism at the rate that Thailand is?
We have no kind of like a precise data to decide whether or not the pollution will affect to the tourism or not. But the problem is that because the tourists they don't stay in Thailand for long, like just 1 week or 2 weeks or at most a month. But Thai people, we have to stay for long. And partly the pollution, like a PMI problem, is just like seasonal. It just stay like 1 or 2 months, or maybe just sometimes just week. Or it depends on the change of the climate. This make the government not to they don't make the effort, a lot of effort to resolve this problem. Everyone just talking about how we can, we have a lot of policy to address this problem. We have a lot of policy to ease this problem, but nothing just going into the real implementation. And then sometimes it just disappear. The pollution just disappear because of the climate change. The rainy season come in, and then people just getting they just move on. That's it.
Can I add a little bit about pollution, because it's really important for the government at this time. The election is coming, and all of the political party are concerning about the pollutions in Thailand, especially PM 2.5 and the burning transboundary heads from the north and also transboundary heads from the south. Actually, it affects tourism a lot, especially in the northern part. More than 80% of the hotel were canceled by all the Thais who are planning to travel in the north during the beginning of the years, because the weather is really nice. But because of the pollution, most of them cancel the hotels. And the pollution is actually not from Thailand itself. It came from other neighbor countries like Myanmar and Laos. They burn all the agriculture, for example, like corns, rice, and some other thing. In the south, they burn palm oil. So then it's become the transboundary heads across to Thailand. So ASEAN trying to help us solve this kind of problem, and the government trying hard to cooperate with the ASEAN country by using the we call like the policy ATTPH or ATTHP, this kind of thing. I don't really remember the exact name of the agenda, but we signed that agreement. And now you can see that from the south, there's no pollution from Indonesia cross to Thailand, but in the north is kind of really hard for Thai government to negotiate with the Burmese and Laos government to stop burning for all those sites.
Okay, that's really interesting, and hopefully it remains a strong policy of the Thai government, the new Thai government after the elections. Can you mention that tourists only pass through Thailand, maybe stay a week, 2 weeks, but Thais, of course, live there all the time. Can I ask you, where do Thais go on holiday? I mentioned earlier, 150,000 of them come to Switzerland every year, but is there any secret destination within Thailand that you're keeping for yourselves that we'd like to know about here in Europe?
It depends. Depends on the people that you ask. For example, if you ask, like middle class people or upper middle class people, I think they will spend holiday in Tokyo, or in Japan, or in Hong Kong, or at least in Singapore. But if you ask, like the lower middle income people, maybe I think they will spend their holiday in the certain attractive tourist site, whether in Chiang Mai, in northern Thailand, or in southern Thailand, or in Pattaya, or Phuket, for example. So it depends. It doesn't fix on for each people who will decide where to go. Right.
Okay. Well, look, we'll move on maybe to politics, because I know many in our audience will be interested in the political scene in Thailand. Just a reminder to our audience here to pose your questions in the Q&A. I see questions there already, and any question that takes your fancy, please upvote it so that it has a better chance of being asked in the 15 minutes we give to questions towards the end. Over to politics, and I know this is both of your areas, really. This is the area that you make your living and that you're expert on. Thailand has experienced apparently 19 military coups since 1932, when it evolved from an absolute monarchy, as I said earlier, to a constitutional one. And for 64 of the last 90-something years, the country has had a military or ex-military leader. The current Prime Minister, General Prayut, or Prime Minister Prayut, himself came to power through a coup in 2014. Is it too insensitive a question to ask, why does the country have so many coups? Either of you prepared to take that question? And I am very conscious of, the sensitivity of these questions, but it is a fascinating issue. The number of coups, 19 in 90 years. So that's quite a lot.
You know what? Every time that I went to give a talk around the world, I always face this question. I make kind of funny that sometimes the democracy and the people in Thailand kind of are maybe tired or something. So then the military step inside, trying to change it more, Thailand to be more to have more capacity to run the country. But actually, every time that the military came into power or staged a coup, they always blame that the politicians are corrupt. And there's a lot of evidence along each period of time that every time that the military stage a coup, there's some kind of corruptions agenda or issues coming going on in that government. So then that's why they take this kind of opportunity to stage the coup. But the latest coup in 2014, surprisingly enough, that coup was supported by a lot of the middle class in Bangkok. You can see that a lot of people in Bangkok give the roses, flower to cheer up the military when they, trying to stop the government to enter the parliament, the cabinet or the government house, or, enter the parliament. So this kind of thing is, one of the reasons that the military claiming that, the right way to, stop the corruption is just to stage the coup. If you are following Thailand, you can see that one of the former military, he is now the deputy prime minister. He released 6 letters to the public, during this time of the election. So basically, he tried to mention that he tried to mention that now himself, after he entered the politics, he understands more democracy, and he trying to turn Thailand to be more democracy and trying to stop the coup. So basically, we might not have more coup in the future. I use the term might. It's mean I don't really know what might be happening in the future, but at this time, the corruption is the most important issue that the military always use when they stage a coup.
Well, Khun Khan, you sent me some slides on the range of parties and candidates for the upcoming elections, and it is quite bewildering for an outsider. Also, a lot of people seem to move parties from one party to another, and it's a dizzying array of permutations in terms of who might form the next government. Can you give us maybe an overview, without getting into names of all the candidates and all the parties, of who are the main parties, who are the main candidates to lead the country in the election, which I believe will be in May, as the King dissolved the parliament earlier this week?
Okay. Lastly, I think the country is still in the polarized situation. One side in this country, they support the coup, but the other side, they don't quite support the coup. So it's quite difficult to level them. I mean, if I level the group that do not support the coup as a democracy or democratic force, some people from the other side just say that you just don't talk about the truth. But anyways, so I will label it as a pro-coup and anti-coup force. Okay, the anti-coup force, the major party is Pheu Thai party, and another major party is the Anakot Mai and Khao Klai or Progressive Party. Right now, according to the poll from NIDA poll, I just follow quite a bit because of its precise prediction from the past election as well. The Pheu Thai party still lead the popularity according to the poll. NIDA poll, they just divide the result into two parts. The first part is about the candidate, and the second part is about the political party itself. So the data from both observation quite conform to each other. So it means that largely, I think the next election, if according to this poll, it means that maybe Pheu Thai can capture quite a huge number of the seats, of the MP seats, and then it may follow by from another 4 or 5 major parties. Yes, of course, this one, Pheu Thai. This is my own interpretation and observing. It may not reflect the reality, but at the moment, it's led by Pheu Thai and then followed by Punchada Thai.
And can I ask you to identify the key candidates from these parties who might be next Prime Minister?
From Pheu Thai recently, I think they not yet announced the official name, but I think it's quite clear that Paetongtarn Shinawat, the daughter of the former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawat, will be one of the candidates, and then Kun Sethha Thavisin. Another is also another candidate. They not yet to announce the third candidate, but myself, I expect that it will be Dr. Promin Lesuryadej. So this is from Pheu Thai, and from the recent government, Thai Rwam Thai Sang Chat, it will be General Prayut, and then Palang Pracharat, it will be General Prawit. So if we talk about the potential candidate, it will be from these people. Maybe Kun Thaksin will have some chance from Punchada Thai Party, but I think if we think about the factor from Senate, Prawit, General Prawit and General Prayut still have very high potential to be the next premier.
Am I right in saying that General Prayut and General Prawit were in the same party until recently, but are now in different parties?
Right, and it's quite difficult to explain the situation because General Prayut never been in Palang Pracharat before, but Palang Pracharat just endorsed him to be the Prime Minister candidate from the last election. But now he just apply to the new political party, Rwam Thai Sang Chat, and then Prawit just being the candidate and the leader of the Palang Pracharat. So that is the situation.
Okay. And Kun Punchada, what are the main issues on the minds of Thai voters? Does it boil down to the pro and anti existing government, or is there a broader range of issues, economic issues and so forth, that will determine how people vote?
Can you repeat it? My internet is stuck. Yeah.
Okay, I was asking what are the main issues on the minds of Thai voters when they go to the elections? Or will it boil down to a kind of a binary choice of voting for the establishment, the current government, or against it? Or is there a broader range of issues that will determine how people vote?
Well, I think recently some of the people, I think they already decide which party they're gonna vote for, but they ask about 7 to 10% is depend on which poll are you looking for. They are not decide which party they will vote, but this time is really interesting because people who are supporting the conservative side, they will competing and they will only vote for the 3 parties, Rwam Thai, led by the Prime Minister, Palang Pracharat led by the Deputy Prime Minister, and also the Democrat led by the Minister of Commerce. So this is the 3 major party that in the conservative side. But Palang Pracharat trying to change itself to be in the middle, but so far, according to the 6 letters that the Deputy Prime Minister just released in the last 3 months, I think it helped a little bit on how to, Palang Pracharat to stand in the middle. But the other side is conceding of Pheu Thai and Move Forward parties. So most of the voters are more liberal, young generation. They would prefer to vote between these 2 parties. So this time, I think most of the people will consider the more like ideology, not like like to be conservative or to be liberal in order to vote. Policy might be a little bit matter in the other provinces outside Bangkok, because most of the political party, they are competing for the, I would say, like populist policy. They might consider how much each political party will give them if they are elected. But in the middle class in Bangkok and some middle class to elites in the city in other provinces like Chiang Mai, Phuket, or some of the big provinces, they might also consider the policy, but might also consider the stand of the political party and who will be the prime minister. This is the most important.
So would it be right to say there's a bit of an urban-rural divide between who votes yellow and who votes red? Or is that too simplistic?
It's not that divide like before. We don't really have the yellow and the red shirts anymore, even though Pheu Thai trying to make to make the red shirts coming back again, but it's not really that clear like before. But I think it's the difference between the young and the older generations. So basically the young generation go to the liberal side, the older 40 and up to like 60, 80 go to the conservative side. And if I just look at the number of populations just before I go into this sessions, actually it's quite the same numbers of people. It's about 20 million each that have a right to vote, this time. So I think it's really interesting to see how, the younger and the older, competing by voting in this election.
Yeah, and you talk about the young, which reminds me, of course, of the protests, which we saw on our televisions in 2020. I suppose COVID probably brought them to an end, but are the triggers for those protests gone away, Khun Khan, or are they still there, and are the young still as agitated as they were when they were on the streets back in 2019, 2020? And you're on mute. You're on mute, Khun Khan. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I think it's quite difficult to explain the status of the protester because they were quite at the peak status during the pre-COVID, but after the COVID, because of the situation and then the changing dynamic of politics, so it seems that their role quite declining in the perception of the people. For example, like a couple of months ago, there was a news that some protesters they just engaged in the hunger strike, but somehow to release the activists in the jail because of the 112 articles, but somehow not. I think it's not quite success that much. So they just abandon to that activities, and then they get back to they just move on, and then I think they would think about how to make another move to fight their case. So this is the reality that and somehow I think because of the political climate in the country that we move going toward into the election, and then the people just taking the focus on the election more than the protest, like 2 years ago. Right?
Yeah, the Shinawatra family seem to play a big part in Thai politics, and the former Prime Minister Thaksin and his sister, Yingluck, are both outside the country, and I think they have convictions in Thai courts against them, so they're probably not likely to come back. Do they still play an influential role in terms of the Pheu Thai party and Thaksin's daughter, like the candidate for PM?
This is quite difficult to explain, because we have a law in Thailand that people who is outside the party, if they playing the major important role to to manipulate the party, the party will be fight to dissolve. So I cannot say that like Thaksin and Yingluck will play the major role to control or to influence the party, but I will say that Thaksin and Shinawatra still have the major impact in the people who support the Pheu Thai party, or the people who still loyal to Pheu Thai party.
Right.
And they also, I mean, particularly Dr. Thaksin, he run the bi-weekly TV program with Voice TV to talk about the former success policy during his Thai administration. So I think this helped a lot for the popularity of both his daughter and the Thai party.
Okay, I'm going to ask you both and put you on the spot to make a prediction. I mean, it's Byzantine, the range of parties and permutations to who will be the ruling government after the election. But if you were to put a small bet on, who do you think will be the party dominating the next government, and who might be the prime minister?
I think the Thai will be the major dominant party in the next election. But because of the Senate, I think they cannot make the candidate of the prime minister in their own. I think they need to consult with General Prawit. So it's highly that General Prawit will be our next prime minister.
Yeah,
according to the poll.
Punchada, your prediction?
The Pheu Thai party will get a largest numbers of votes, but I think General Pravit will be the prime minister as well, because he controls the Senate and also other institutions, for example, like the courts or corruption bureau and the police and other things. And I believe that the Pheu Thai party needs support from him as well. And I think it's Thaksin and might not let his daughter to be a prime minister, because I think this time he sent his daughter as a candidate because just to represent him as has a relationship and just represent to the people that he's still here. But I think it will be the other guys, the owners of the business guy will be the first candidate for the prime minister.
Okay. And do you expect that the elections will pass peacefully and transition of power will be peaceful regardless of who comes out as the winners on the other side?
I think it will be this time it will be passed peacefully, and they already start to negotiate for the cabinet and the prime minister. As you can see in the news, a lot of political party came to have lunch with deputy prime minister a couple of times, and just before our program, one of the member of the Palang Pracharat party just gave an interview to the televisions that they have discussed about, the formation of the government. So it's my possible, they already know who's going to be, in the cabinet or who's going to be the prime minister.
Okay. Khun Khan, anything to add to that? Peaceful transition of power, elections.
Yes. I think that we have no violence or any problem of the transitioning to the new government. And actually, if our prediction will be the reality in the next 5 weeks, it will be good for Prayut as well.
Okay. Well, let's see which of your predictions comes true. It'll take some time. I guess the election's in May, and by all accounts, it takes some months after that before the final outcome is determined after talks, etc. One part of the country that there has been violence over the last 20 years is the southern provinces, the 3 southern provinces, which I believe are predominantly Muslim. But I believe there was a breakthrough in 2019, facilitated, interestingly enough, by a Swiss NGO, the Center for Humanitarian Dialogue from Geneva, who brokered talks in Berlin, in Germany. Are things quiet in the southern provinces, or is there still unrest?
Well, recently, I think it's more peaceful because of the COVID. I would say that, and there's a lot of talk between the government, Thai government, and the Malaysian government trying to sit down and talk with the BRN. And I think it solved the problems. There's no a lot of violence as before, but recently, I think, I don't remember when, but during the New Year, there's a big, violence that burning and bombing 7-Elevens and the gas station. So that's the big one. And after that, after Malaysians have the new prime minister, I think that we see the light at the end of the tunnel that, the talk between the BRN and Thai government would be more peacefully and, finally there might be some change in the situation. And recently, I think most of the political party trying to introduce the policy concerning the violence and the southern part as well. Some of the party, and just today I have a talk with a lot of people who are working from the south and also from the King Prachapok Institute. They show me the result of the survey on the southern part. And I think the government came in the right direction. They're trying to, slowly negotiate with the BRN, and it seems to be effective at this time.
And Khun Khan, I see in the questions, which we'll come to in a few more minutes, but there is a question on this topic suggesting that would maybe regional autonomy for those provinces, a la the Swiss approach, be an answer to the issues in the southern provinces.
Yeah, actually, this is my research, my recent research, to dig down into what is the proper governance for the state, and if we talk about the level of autonomy and centralization, I think this is to meet in between. It cannot too much centralization, and it cannot too much autonomy.
Right.
So, for example, compared to Thailand, in Malaysia, they are the federal state. And if you talk about the perception of the people over there, I'm not yet have a data to back up my claim, but I think that the Malaysian people will say that, we are too much autonomy. We need more centralization. Okay. But in Thailand, in contrary, I think Thai people, especially in provincial area, I think they will ask for more autonomy.
Okay, so Thailand has, I think, some 76 provinces, but it's not a federal state, right? It's centralized.
Centralized, okay. Very strong centralized. Yeah,
okay, all right. I just picked that up in the questions, and as we were on it, I said I'd pose that question. Let's move on a bit, and I do want to encourage any last questions to be put in the Q&A, which we'll come to in about 5 minutes' time. Before we do that, I had a couple of more questions for you myself, and not trivial, but the legalization of cannabis recently. What was the background to that? What were the drivers? What are the concerns about it? But almost in parallel, there are some clampdowns on the production of craft beer and the advertising of alcohol. The two seem to be almost in contradiction with each other. Any comments, either of you, on that? The cannabis one first, maybe. Khun Punchada?
Yeah, the cannabis one is the policy that released by the Phumchai Thai party, the coalition government party. So then that's why they try to push this kind of policy to be effective and happen. But for the Thai itself, most of the university, for example, they are worried a lot. And recently, other political party, for example, the Democrat, trying to campaign against this cannabis policy of Phumchai Thai, and other political party, I don't think that they agree to continue this cannabis policy. Recently, I have met with a lot of our, diplomats from around the world. They are really worried about this cannabis policy, especially, for example, Singapore, because the law in Singapore is really strong, and they are kind of worried about their people, when they came to Thailand and they did not really know that there's some cannabis in water or in cookies, and they eat it. And then they might get allergic to this cannabis, and then they went to the hospital back in Singapore. After they wake up, they will be arrested. So then that's why, the government of other countries really worries about it. And I think after when we have the next government, I think they will reconsider the law and regulation related to the cannabis. And I think that most of the political party, they don't want to pass the law related to the cannabis policy of Phumchai Thai.
And you think what has been already put in place will be repealed as regards the legalization of cannabis? Reversed, repealed?
At this time, I'm not quite sure, because, we don't really know who's going to be in the government after the next election. But at this point of the day, everything related, all the policy related to the cannabis, it's stopped for now because we already dissolved the parliament.
Okay. All right. One other question in the, I suppose, the more lighthearted area is the power of soft power. The K-pop band Blackpink, not a band I'm particularly familiar with myself, I have to admit, but one of its key singers and dancers is a Thai lady, Lisa, or La Lisa, I think maybe her full name. And the Thai Prime Minister has recently lauded her as a figure of Thai soft power. Talk to me about that and the power that Blackpink and Lisa have on the young people of the country.
Yes. Currently, I think the young generation they are quite like favor the K-pop culture. So Lisa, because she is in the K-pop girl generation group, so that quite helped her a lot. But anyway, it depends on her own performance herself as well. According to my observation, I think she practiced a lot and practiced very heavily to thrive up to her career. So if you see her performance on the concert or whatever music video, for example, I think she performed that performance quite well. And
Right.
even that, there is a Chinese reality show that asks her to be the coach and to give the advice to other young Chinese generation, and I think she know what she do really quite well. So
Okay.
I think this is
Okay.
the combination of the forces. Right.
Excellent. Well, I haven't heard of her, but apparently she's a force in Thailand, and Blackpink are across Southeast Asia. I just have one last question. It is a big question, but if I could have a really quick answer from you, in terms of Thailand's positioning vis-a-vis China, and particularly the China-US tensions. In recent years, Thailand's foreign policy has probably bent a little bit towards China. And of course, there are, I believe, some 10 million Thais of Chinese origin. So in your view, what will be the future of Thailand's foreign policy, and in particular in terms of trade and geopolitical alignment? Very quick answer on what is, I know, a big question.
Well,
From
I think
Punchada.
Thailand will be a central, mutual, non-alignment, but we will consider the benefit of the country the most. If, in an economic term, we have to be close to China because we have a lot of trades and, export, import with the Chinese business guy and, the government itself. But in the security, we have to be closer to the US. The Cobra goal still going on between US and Thailand. So, basically, it's kind of balance of power between two sides. I don't think that formally we will take side. We will be formal, stand of Thailand in the international relation. We will be neutral. But in practice, you can see is that we kind of lean toward China, but not in a formal way. But we can see from how the government action and performance on the policy toward China.
So like much of Southeast Asia, try and steer a middle ground between the two superpowers. I'm going to go to the questions from the audience. There are some great questions there, and I don't want to leave too little time to get to them. So if I take them in the order that they were voted, the first question, maybe I'll ask you, Khun Khan, to take this one. Which economic areas and regions are especially fitting for a shift from supply chains from China to Thailand? And how is the logistical infrastructure of Thailand developing currently with that in mind?
Right. I think the recent major development is the renewable fuel and the hybrid autonomous car. I think I see a lot of Chinese automaker. They just shift their production supply chain into Thailand and also other countries as well. And also currently, I think the Thai government, they just promote for the BCG, bioeconomy, circular economy, and green economy. So I think this is the area that Thailand will focus more. Even in the next government that come from the opposition as well. I think from Thai, for example, I think they will focus on this area. Right.
And in and around the same kind of topic, the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative and the EU's Global Gateway Initiative, are they making a difference, or do you expect they will make a difference on the ground in terms of infrastructure?
Okay, this is quite hard to say because it's a contest policy territory between the civilian government and the security sector. In the past week, I think there is an announcement of the grand strategy of Thai security in the Royal Gazette, and it said that Thai need to make the balance between the major powers and also including the BI as well. So I think it's quite difficult for Thailand to take part in any side. But anyway, when we talk about the infrastructure development, I think we quite make a huge development from the past decades.
Okay.
You will see more, like a road and trans commuting infrastructure quite developed a lot, right?
Yeah. Okay. I'll move on to the next question. Kun Punchada, something very different. What is the role of Buddhist clergy in Thai politics and society?
Wow, this is a hard question. I'm not a
Yeah.
religion person as well. Well, before that, during the red shirt and yellow shirt, there's some monks that trying to protest against, in the politics. But recently, I don't think that the Buddhists or kind of monk or anything, they try to involve in Thai politics because according to the laws of Thailand, when you ordain as a monk, you cannot really involve in politics as well. But in the past, that's different. But now I don't think there's anything that related, or involve formally in politics.
Not formally, but I presume culturally it's woven into the fabric of Thai life, politics and non-politics. Buddhism, I mean.
Something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Kun Khan, a really tricky question for you, and I'm taking them in the order that they've been voted. Why is sex, well, I presume it's sex tourism, synonymous with Ireland? Yeah, why is sex synonymous with tourism in Ireland? Other countries do not have such a tag attached to it, though it is universal. And while you gather your thoughts on that, I should say that Thailand is also known as a medical tourism destination with 2.5 million visitors a year. So, sex tourism in Thailand. Over to you, Kun Khan.
Yeah, this is the taboo issue. It's not. It cannot be openly debated in Thai policy. I don't know why. Actually, we run this kind of industry quite a lot. If we see the parlor massage in central of Bangkok, that is the sex industry in Bangkok. Maybe this is part of our culture that we preach to believe that we are in the good person, but somehow in the reality, some part of our business need to allow this kind of underground economy. My stance is that I think it is better for Thailand to address that publicly and openly, and then how we can address the policy to legalize it. And I think this is good for everyone. For example, for the people who engage in that industry themselves, they will have more hygiene situation, and they will have more healthier situation for themselves as well.
And is it currently tolerated or is it legal? Excuse my ignorance of the law on this issue, but it's very evident in certain parts of Bangkok and in Pattaya, but I was never sure whether it was just legal or tolerated by the authorities.
It's officially illegal.
Illegal, okay.
But it's practically legal.
I see. Okay. Well, I think you've answered that as well as anybody could. The next question I see here, I have to say I don't quite understand it, but what are your opinions on the Thai Canal? I don't know what the Thai Canal is, but maybe one of you does. Kun Punchada, do you know?
Thai Canal is I'm not quite sure. Was this the regular canal in Bangkok or regular canal? I don't think that they have a plan to do it anymore, right? Because I think Singapore not okay with it, and then there's a lot of budget to invest on that side. They were discussing a lot of time in the previous government, but recently I don't think it's going to happen.
Okay, all right. Moving on to the next question here. I think we touched on it earlier. Is climate change and, for instance, its aforementioned effect on tourism or rising sea levels, especially considering Thailand was affected by severe floods a few years ago, a topic that has been discussed leading up to the election? Climate change and the election.
Not that many on the campaigns, but the PM 2.5, the pollution, that's a lot. But the climate change overall, like in the big picture, I don't see any debate at this time. But about the environmental environment and the PM 2.5, there's a lot of political party raise this issue in all the on the debate during in this time of election. So I think most of the political parties sort of focus more on the problem of 2.5, the PM 2.5 and the transboundary heads.
Okay. Looking to the next question, In terms of the elections and the appointment of the members of the Senate, I know it's quite complicated, so it's not easy to explain it in a webinar, but the Senate members are mostly appointed, at least according to the question, by the Royal Thai military, which plays a part in choosing the Thai head of government. Can you comment on that, Kun Khan, the role that the military play, or whomever plays in appointing the Senate, and then the role the Senate plays in appointing the head of government later?
Yes, the junta led by Prime Minister Prayut, they appoint the Senate. In favor, the Senate just appoint General Prayut back into the Prime Minister. You know, that is like a reproduction from each other. I think this relation will deep. Run deep and go further into the next election as well. But also in the same time, I think that General Prayut, he also played a fair share of role to influence some part of Senate. And I think maybe as much as 80 out of 250 Senates that will be on the General Prayut faction. Right.
Okay.
Can I add a little bit more on
please
this,
do.
the Senate? Yeah, actually, there's a sort of a so-called election, but it's actually not the election. It's more like selection. So they divide the people in Thailand into 10 occupations, and each occupation they select the representative by itself, and then they they have a set of the name. I think it's about 400 or 500, and this is not the final decision of the people who select the people who they want to be the represent of their occupations. The final decision was made by General Deputy Prime Minister General Pravit. So then that's why even though each group of occupation they select the Senate, finally the final decision was made by the military government at that time. And then in the constitutions, there's a one article mentions that the Senate has a right to vote for the Prime Minister. This is the first time in Thai constitutions in the history that the Senate have a right to vote for the Prime Minister, and most of the Senate always vote to support the military because they're the one who select them to be the Senate.
Okay, so the Senate will play an important role in the numbers game after the actual election. The lower house and the Senate combined will.
Right. I may add one point. This year will be the last year that the Senate can have the right to vote for the Prime Minister. But after that, they will have no right to do that again.
Okay.
So it's just only 1 year.
Okay. I think we have time for probably two, maybe three last questions, if we can answer them briefly. What is Thailand's view on ASEAN, of which it was one of the proud founders with the Bangkok Declaration in 1967? What kind of role does ASEAN play in the region and Thailand's involvement in it?
Well, I think, recently Thailand roles in ASEAN is really decreasing compared to before the coup. And every time I attend the seminar on international relations, we are criticized the roles of the government in ASEAN at this time. And, ASEAN recently, they tried to push Thailand on the case of Myanmar, because of the military control Myanmar, and also they accused a lot of civilians, and Thailand sort of did not really play a role more effectively, and all the ASEAN trying to push Thailand to be a middleman to negotiate with the Burmese government. But so far, I think it's a bit difficult, because we are a close neighbor and we have a close relationship for a long time, and the government have a close relation. So then Thailand have to play very careful roles on how to deal with this kind of what happening in Myanmar.
Okay. Kun Khan, a quick comment on the same, Thailand's views of ASEAN?
I think fundamentally, Thailand still support the ASEAN and also the centralized of ASEAN activity as well. But the problem is that in reality, the major power like China or even the US itself, they tend to approach ASEAN countries in bilateral approach. For example, China, I think they are quite close to countries like Laos, Cambodia, and Myanmar more. in reality, although that in ASEAN we tend to say that we have like centralization or more unification of ASEAN country, but in reality, I think each country will have their own way to assess risk and their benefit.
Well, taking that and your comments earlier on the US-China policies that China might adopt, where does Europe fit in the Thai political consciousness? Is Europe a priority for the Thai government? I noted last week the announcement of the relaunch of trade negotiations with the EU. So clearly Europe figures somewhere in the Thai environment. But in general, does Europe figure politically, economically in the Thai life, in Thai political life?
I think, yes, of course, European countries still play a role in Thai, economic, especially. I think I remember that there's unions for the European business, to get together. That's sort of an organization for European businessmen in Thailand or in Bangkok as well. So then I think European countries, are still important for the Thai economy, especially the technology transfer from the European country to Thailand to improve their products and infrastructures.
Okay. I there are so many more things we could ask about. I'm going to ask one last question, which wasn't in the chat, and I suppose needs to be sensitively handled. Is the lèse-majesté laws very strict in Thailand, among the strictest in the world? Do you see them being relaxed anytime in the near future? Just a quick answer, yes or no. Will they be relaxed, or will they remain as strict as they are now?
Remains strict.
Remains strict.
Remains strict. Okay. All right. There is a question rolled over from a previous Closer Look webinar about the relationship between Thailand and Laos. Laos was the country featured at the time, and I know it's a close neighbor and very similar linguistically and religiously. Apparently, Laosians look to Thailand for a lot of, have close ties. I wonder, does Thailand consider Laos as close, or is it just a little country nearby that doesn't figure in Thai life? Khun Khan?
Yes.
Does Laos figure in Thai life in the way that Thailand seems to figure in Laosian life?
It's quite difficult to explain the relationship between both countries, Lao Thai or Cambodian Thai. For example, we have the issue about the Thai martial art, for example. They tend to compete each other, but generally, I think in the platform of ASEAN, I think we maintain the quite very peaceful relationship between both countries.
Okay, all right. I'm going to close it at that because we've just run a minute or two over. That's the end of today's webinar on the fascinating country of Thailand. It's also the end of Series 3 of A Closer Look. All 15 episodes are available to watch on the Asia Society website. From A Closer Look at Sri Lanka to Mongolia, the Philippines, the Solomon Islands, go to asiasociety.org/Switzerland and click on A Closer Look in the events menu at the top of the site to see any of the 15 episodes. So thank you very much to our two guests today, to our audience. Sorry, I've run a minute or two over, but thank you, Khun Kan Yuenyong and Khun Punchada Sirivunnabood, for taking us inside Thailand with your unique perspectives. Thank you, the audience, for your great questions and for joining us. And we'll see you all again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.